You probably know decentralized trials have been a very hot topic in clinical trials ever since the start of the pandemic a couple years ago. It seems like your company is engaging patients early enough to gain a better understanding of how to intelligently design its clinical trials. So I'm just curious, is the company gaining a better understanding of how to incorporate hybrid approaches into your trials as well?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ed. Absolutely. You asked the question earlier about, the change management and how we approach this. And I mentioned that we have goals and objectives that are set that are very much aligned with the patient-centric approach. One of them actually is related to the integration of digital and remote capabilities. It is one of our KPIs in development that 100% of our phase 2 and 3 studies must have remote and digital capabilities built within. So to your point, making sure that we are aligned with what is easy for individuals, that we don't want to overburden people for certain. And we do ask very specific questions in our panels, and certainly we learn from historical efforts. But what we've heard most profusely is key. We need to give people the option. So let me give you an example. Some individuals have shared with us, they actually enjoy going into the clinic and to see their physician. So for those individuals where you may have the option to have a remote or a digitally enabled, set of data collections, or have somebody come into the house through home nursing, we actually allow them to go into the clinic if they want to do that. So I think that has probably been the most the biggest thing that we hear consistently. Also, that when individuals are using things like ePro, it's important for them to have access to somebody who can answer and troubleshoot questions when it comes along. And certainly I think we saw that today was trying to get our videos to come through, that the unexpected can happen. So making sure that they have information available and they have the support there so that they don't get frustrated with it, and making it more integrated. So I hope that answers some of the questions.
Yeah, and I know that I believe right now 100% of Sanofi's phase 2 and phase 3 studies now have a remote capability built into them. And I think that is an incredible statistic, considering how many companies I talk to who still seem to be, somewhat cautious or reluctant to jump into that. I think that's wonderful, and it will really mean a lot to the patients taking part in trials. So the last thing I wanted to ask you, this was another question from Thomas. He mentions that Sanofi has a SMILE, S-M-I-L-E program that has been implemented. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not, but he was asking how much of this initiative is connected to that one. Are they tied together in any way?
Yeah, and Thomas, it's great that you're familiar with SMILE, which stands for Sanofi Making Investigators' Lives Easier. Yes, Terttu and I have been deeply involved with that since the concept and inception. It's very much connected to it because we recognize and we, wholeheartedly are committed to making sure that it is a holistic experience. So part of the SMILE program was looking at how do we make clinical trials less complex for the investigator sites. But there's obviously a connection that if we're making it easier for investigators and we're making clinical trials more of an integrated consideration for patients, that it all comes together at the investigator site. And so we really can't decouple any of those efforts, and we have to be keeping ourselves completely cognizant of all of the elements that are going to drive simplification for the trial sites. Certainly right now, I have to recognize anybody who's on the phone who is working at the clinical trial site level. You're just absolutely phenomenal at what you do. Thank you for what you're doing. But they're the ones that are also working with the patients directly. And so if we are, as an example, developing our outcomes and our endpoints that really align around what data, generating data in a clinical trial, it's important for a patient and their loved ones and stakeholders, caregivers who may be discussing this with them, to recognize that the data generated are probably aligned, and hopefully aligned because we've been asking the questions, if this medication or this new treatment healthcare option works, do we have the data that's going to answer the questions that they're going to have in front of their physician if it comes to market? So there's an absolute ecosystem there that just cannot be uncoupled.